Hi, my name is Nick, and I wear Velcro shoes. Today I'm going to show you how to directly observe and photograph the sun. Well, not directly. You don't want to directly look at the sun. That's bad. It'll burn your eyes out. But there are different methods for indirect observation and looking through special filters, and I will show you those different methods. This is useful information if you want to just observe the sun in general, or if you want to photograph or observe any upcoming eclipses, such as the one on August 21st, 2017. So let's get started. Okay, the simplest method is to use a pinhole, is to create a pinhole projector system. This can be done by first you need two pieces of paper. One will serve as the projector and one will serve as the projecting surface. And what you do is you fold it, take one of the papers and you fold it. Try not to crease it too much. And you just cut a square, a small square in the center. You know, a triangle, which you can do like that. And you have a little hole in the center. And then you get some aluminum foil, which I have already cut. And you fit it on top. This is excessive. So, cut that down. And just cut that down. Now you can you can simply just tape it if you want. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. Or you can glue it. I happen to have glue sitting here, so we're going to just glue this thing on. Because why not? Oops, I need some glue. So, and just a little bit. This is probably excessive. So I'm smeared around a little bit here. Okay. And then you take your foil and you just do this. And again, it does not have to be super smooth or anything. And ta-da! And then you take your pin, you get it like a push pin, like that, and you just put a hole right in the center. And there you go. Now, your pinhole, a push pin is pretty much the kind of size you want. There's some interesting physics involved with this. If your hole is too small, you have to worry about diffraction. If your hole is too large, it'll get out of focus. So there's lots of weird problems. But anyway, the basic idea is that you take this out into the sun. You have the sun shining through the hole. And then you have this other piece of paper and you hold this other piece of paper below that. So you go like this kind of thing. Okay? And it'll project an image of the sun on this piece of paper. Now, this is by far the simplest method of safely observing the sun. But there's another method for making one of these that's a little bit better. And you need a box. Now, this is just a box. Shoe boxes work really good. But you can use just a normal shipping box. This is one I got probably from Amazon. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But the basic idea will be to do the same thing. You cut a hole here, and then you have the image shine through here, and then you put a surface there. Uh-oh. So let's do that real quick. First, decide which side you want to cut. And I think I'll just cut this side and get a knife, and try not to cut yourself. And you will burn yourself because that is very, very hot. So there you go. And take your push pin. You might want to experiment with different sizes, but it seems like just a normal kind of pin size works really good. The roundness of the hole is important. Okay. Okay. So now we take this other end, and that's kind of terrible. It's a nice lumpy surface. But it won't matter. Okay, so now I have a projector. Now, there's two things you can do with this. You can just kind of, you know, again, sunlight comes in through here, through the hole, and then goes on here. And what you will see is a tiny little dot. And as the eclipse occurs, you'll see the shadow of the moon just slowly go across the tiny little dot. Now, there's two things you can do. You can keep it like this, and you can basically just hold the thing over your head and just look through from this end, and that'll work just fine. If you want to get fancy, you can close this up, and I'm going to get fancy. You can just close this up, and you can just tape it, seal it up. Now, some people may worry about light leaking in. Well, the other thing is, how do you view it? Well, what you do is you take a knife. You take your knife again, and you cut a viewing port. Right there, not a square, but it's good enough. And I don't want to. You kind of view, anyway, that's in there forever now. But you take a viewing port, and you can see the screen in there. Now, this thing kind of leaks light. You might want to tape up these corners, but it's really not that important, to be totally honest. You'll be able to see this. You'll be able to see it just fine, like it is. I will give a demonstration of this later. Now, I'm going to be totally frank. These are terrible. Okay, these are terrible ways to view the sun. This is like, if this is the only thing you can do, yeah, go ahead and do it. You'll be able to view the eclipse like this. You do not want to look directly at the sun. Not without proper protection. So if this is your only choice, yes. But I will give a demonstration later to show you just how terrible this really is. You think you're going to get some kind of giant projection of the sun in here. You're not. It's going to be a tiny, tiny little dot, smaller than the dime. And it just sucks. Okay. If you really want a good view of the sun, get a pair of these. These are solar eclipse viewing glasses. I bought these off Amazon, 2-day shipping, like $3 or $4 a pair. And you can get the paper ones even cheaper. You can buy the paper ones locally, but these will let you look directly at the sun in perfect safety, and it's absolutely magnificent. Even if you're not planning on viewing the eclipse, get a pair of these anyway, just because it's fantastic to look straight at the sun in perfect safety. And it beats the box, okay? It beats this projection. So yeah, definitely get these, especially if you're planning on viewing the eclipse. And you can still get them. You get the paper ones, I think you can get them locally at like Walmart or something. I don't know about the plastic ones. I didn't really shop around that much. But, oh yeah, make sure that you get ISO certified glasses. There is some controversy about that, and I will post a couple links about the controversy about that. So yeah, you want to make sure they're ISO certified and they're safe. Okay, so let's try out our box projector method. Now, the first thing you want to do is line up with the sun. And in order to do that, all you have to do is minimize the shadow that the box casts. When your shadow is minimized, you are lined up with the sun. Okay, so it's not nearly as bad as I may have initially implied. And in fact, earlier I was able to see very distinctly clouds cross in front of it. So it's a pretty sharp image. It's not as good as glasses, but it's still not that bad. So go ahead and try this. The most fun method for viewing the sun or an eclipse is to create an optical projection of the sun using a telescope. This is achieved by aiming a telescope directly at the sun and using a flat piece of white paper to shine the projection of the sun onto. Do not look through the eyepiece. You will go blind and possibly catch on fire. It's also important to have a shroud around the telescope. This is simply to cast a shadow and make your projection more prominent. Cardboard works remarkably well, and if you cut the diameter right, it'll fit on snugly without having to use any tape. Now, to line up your telescope in the first place, observe your shadows. When your telescope's shadow is minimized, then it's lined up with the sun. There are some important things to note before attempting any of this. Make sure your telescope has all glass optics. Older telescopes are better for this. A lot of cheap modern telescopes will have a plastic eyepiece, and a plastic eyepiece will burn and become ruined. You do not need or particularly want an expensive telescope. A telescope with a very large aperture, that's the front end of the telescope, will resolve a sharper image and gather more light. However, more light is not really that desirable, as it will cause your optical elements to heat up quicker and hotter than a smaller telescope. Do not hold the paper viewing screen right up to the eyepiece. If you hold it too close, it will catch on fire, just like your eyes if you foolishly look through the telescope. Do not look through the eyepiece. Just hold the paper far enough away for a good viewing. It will dramatically fade the farther you hold the paper. You will also want to make sure your optics aren't overheating. I did my solar projection with both an 80mm and a 60mm telescope, and I didn't have any problems. But you'll still want to check your telescope and make sure it's okay. If you heed these warnings, this really is a good way to observe the eclipse. I also recommend that you check Craigslist for cheap used telescopes, especially older ones, as they generally will have glass optics. If you really want to go all out, you can get this stuff. This is BAADER, or perhaps it's pronounced BAADER, Astro Solar Safety Film. This will allow you to make your own solar filters so that you can look at the sun through binoculars, a telescope, or a camera. This is top-of-the-line stuff, and I included a link or two below with more information. The first thing I did was measure the outside diameter of my lens I wish to cover. Then I multiplied this by pi to get the circumference. Then I added a few extra centimeters to allow overlap. Next, I cut a thin strip of cardboard, wrapped it around the outside of the binoculars, and glued it together, being careful not to get glue on the binoculars themselves. I now had a ring that fit snugly around the aperture. Next, using more cardboard, a compass, and a knife, I drew 2 circles and cut them out, making holes that should just barely fit over the lens. You'll want to trim the edges of these. Next, I cut a square out of my BAADER film, placed it on one of my squares, then I put glue on the other one and placed it on top. After this hardened, I flipped it over and did the same thing with the other square. The final step was to line up the ring with the filter and the binoculars. I did this by putting it all together and gluing around the outside edge of the ring, again being careful not to get glue on the binoculars. My final result was the creation of 5 filters, 4 for my 2 sets of binoculars and 1 for my camera. These will allow me to look directly at the sun safely and to take photos or even video of the sun. So I went out to take some photos. After a while, the weather cleared up and I was able to take some photos. Unfortunately, there weren't any sunspots, so the sun was just a white ball. So, in conclusion, if you don't have a telescope and you can't make an elaborate projection system with a telescope, get the pair of these things. They're cheap. You can get them off Amazon. You can get the paper ones. You can even get the paper ones off Amazon too. The paper ones are like $1. You can actually get the paper ones at Walmart too, believe it or not. So, I would just get some of those. They work. The projection box system works okay, but the glasses are just way better. And you can even put your own glasses over them. I prefer to have my glasses over these, and you can fit them under your glasses too if you need to. So anyway, have a nice day. Thank you.